My wife betrayed me by having an affair with my childhood best friend. Then after I uncovered their secret, she's now trying to steal our family's $600, $0 estate and sue me for custody of our kids. Was I just a fool all along? Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how I found out my wife, Emily, was cheating on me with my best friend, Jake. Honestly, it's like some twisted soap opera, but it's real life. The most shocking part. It all unraveled in a matter of days, and now I'm trying to piece together how I was such a fool for so long. We had a good life, or at least I thought we did. Married for 10 years, 2 kids, a nice house, and enough money to keep everything comfortable. I worked hard, and Emily was always the one managing the home, the kids, the bills. She was the perfect wife, or so I thought. I was blind for a long time, or maybe I just refused to see what was right in front of me. Looking back, there were tiny signs, little things that didn't add up. Her phone always kept close, secretive texts, a weird smell on her clothes sometimes, and her suddenly avoiding intimacy. But I brushed it off. She's always been good at lying, and I guess I wanted to believe her. Things started to feel off about a month ago. Emily became more distant, more bitchy, snapping at me over small things. She'd leave the house for hours without explanation. Then I noticed her phone was constantly buzzing late at night, and she'd hide it when I entered the room. That's when I started paying attention, really paying attention. I'd catch her sneaking out of the house at odd hours, or overhear her whispering on the phone in a way that sounded suspicious. My gut told me something was wrong, but I didn't want to believe it. One afternoon, I decided to check her phone. I figured if she was hiding something, maybe I'd find proof. I managed to unlock it when she was in the shower. That's when I saw the messages, flirtatious, intimate, downright disgusting. She was sexting Jake, my best friend since childhood, talking about how much she missed him when he was away on business trips, sending him pictures of herself in sexy lingerie. I couldn't believe what I was reading. All those years of trust, all those memories, and she was cheating on me with the one person I thought was my brother. I felt my stomach turn. It was like being punched in the gut, and I froze there, staring at the screen, trying to process what I'd just seen. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I kept digging. I found receipts for hotel bookings under her name, which she claimed were for business trips, but I knew better. I found messages where she was planning to meet Jake again, saying she couldn't wait to see him. That was the moment I decided I needed to confront her. I couldn't keep living in this lie. I had to know the truth straight from her mouth. The betrayal cut so deep I felt like I was bleeding inside. It was like my entire world was crashing down, and I didn't even know if I could trust her anymore. I waited for her to come home that evening. When she walked in, I could see the guilt in her eyes, but she immediately started lying, denying everything, claiming I was paranoid, that I was imagining things. But I had the evidence, and I didn't care about her excuses. I looked her in the face and told her I knew about the affair. Her reaction was a mix of anger and contempt. She spat that I was overreacting, that I was insecure, and that Jake was just a friend. But I knew better. I saw the way she looked at him in her messages, how she lied about where she was going, what she was doing. All that was left was for her to admit it, but she didn't. The emotional fallout hit me hard. At first, I was filled with rage. How could she do this? How could she betray me, cheat with my best friend, all while pretending to be the perfect wife? I was furious that she could lie so effortlessly, that she could betray everything we built together. Then came the sadness. The realization that the woman I loved, trusted, and built a life with was capable of this deception. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal, and I didn't know how to breathe, how to move forward. In the days that followed, I oscillated between anger and despair. I wanted to confront Jake, to ask him what the hell he thought he was doing, but part of me also wanted to forget it all and pretend it never happened. But I knew better. I had to face the harsh truth. My wife was unfaithful, and she was lying to my face. The trust was shattered, and I realized I couldn't keep living in this illusion. I had to decide what to do next, whether to fight for my marriage or walk away. But one thing was clear, things would never be the same again. After I found out about Emily and Jake, everything changed in an instant. I was sitting there, staring at my phone, feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. My mind was racing, trying to process how I'd been so blind for so long. I thought I knew her, thought I knew my best friend. Turns out I didn't know anything. The trust we had was gone, shattered like glass under a hammer. I kept asking myself, how could I have missed all the signs? How did I not see this coming? But the truth is, I was so wrapped up in our routine, in pretending everything was perfect, that I ignored the small cracks that had been there for months. I remember that night vividly. Emily came home late, smelling like perfume I didn't recognize. She was trying to act normal, but her eyes darted around, avoiding my gaze. I was too angry to say anything at first. I just watched her, waiting for her to slip up or admit something. When she finally did, her voice was defensive, almost bitchy. "You're just overthinking, Jason. You're paranoid. I don't know what you're talking about." She rolled her eyes, brushing past me to get to the bedroom, pretending like everything was fine. But I knew better. I knew she was lying, and I was furious that she thought she could get away with it. The next day, I decided I needed concrete proof. I couldn't just accuse her without evidence. I started digging through her stuff, going through her emails, texts, social media. I even set up a hidden app on her phone just to monitor her activity. It was disgusting, really. I was spying on my wife, but I felt I had no choice. And sure enough, I found more messages from Jake. They were sexting, talking about their secret meetings, making plans to see each other behind my back. She even mentioned how hot Jake looked when he was shirtless, how she loved the way he made her feel alive. That's when I lost it. I felt like I was losing my mind. I remember the exact moment I decided I had to confront her again. I had all the evidence stacked up, and I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I called her into the living room, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. "Emily, I know what you've been doing," I said, holding up the phone with all the messages. Her face went pale, but she quickly masked it with a bitchy sneer. "You're crazy, Jason. You're just jealous. You're making this up because you're insecure." She tried to deny it, to throw the blame back on me, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I wanted an honest answer, and she finally broke down, looking me straight in the eyes and lying through her teeth. "It's not what you think. Jake and I are just friends. It's nothing serious." But I knew better. I could see it in her face, in her eyes. She was lying, and I could feel my blood boiling. The betrayal was like a dagger twisting in my gut. I had trusted her with everything, my heart, my soul, our kids, and she had been sleeping around with someone I once considered family. I felt so stupid, so naive. How could I have missed all the signs? Was I just a fool for so long? The emotional impact was overwhelming. I was furious, devastated, and utterly humiliated. I kept asking myself, how did I not see this coming? Why didn't I notice her secretive phone habits, her late nights, her coldness? I'd always thought I was a good husband, that I provided for her, made her happy. But now I wondered if I'd been living a lie all along. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I was just a placeholder for her until someone better came along. That thought crushed me. I confronted her again, trying to get her to admit the truth, but she doubled down on her lies. She called me paranoid, insecure, crazy, that I was ruining everything with my accusations. She said I was imagining things, that Jake was just a friend, and that I was ruining her life. I wanted to believe her at first, to think maybe she was telling the truth, but deep down I knew that was a lie. Everything pointed to something much darker. The betrayal ran too deep, and I couldn't pretend anymore. I felt a mixture of anger, sadness, and a profound sense of loss. I realized I had to decide what to do next, but I already knew the answer deep inside. I couldn't stay with her, not after this. I deserved better than this. So I made up my mind. I told her I was done, that I needed space to think. I told her she could leave if she wanted, but I wasn't going to stay in a house where I was being played for a fool. She started crying, begging, lying some more, trying to guilt-trip me into staying. But I was numb. I didn't care about her tears anymore. All I cared about was protecting my children, understanding how I'd let this happen, and figuring out what my next move was. The betrayal had shattered everything I thought was real. I felt like I was waking up from a nightmare I couldn't escape. And the worst part, I still didn't have all the answers. The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her lying there, her face a mask of innocence while her phone buzzed with messages from Jake. I kept going over everything in my head, how I missed the signs, how I ignored the little things that added up. I kept asking myself why I wasn't enough, why she had to cheat, betray everything we built. It was like I was living someone else's nightmare, except it was real and I was stuck in it. I decided I had to get some clarity. I started talking to a lawyer. From the very first meeting, I realized how much I'd been blindsided. Emily claimed she was innocent, that she'd never do anything to hurt the kids or me, but I knew better. I had proof, screenshots, receipts, her own words, and I wasn't about to let her spin her web of lies. The lawyer told me that if I wanted to protect the estate and ensure custody of the kids, I'd need to be strategic. Emily was a manipulator, and she'd do anything to get what she wanted. That's when I learned she was already planning her next move. I found out she'd hired a lawyer of her own, an aggressive one from what I could tell, and she was talking about getting her fair share of the estate, which is worth around $600, $0. She kept insisting she deserved it, that she'd been the one holding everything together, even though I knew she'd been secretly sneaking around behind my back. She was also making moves to take custody of the kids, claiming I was an unfit father because I was emotionally unstable after discovering her affair. It was all a game to her, a way to manipulate the situation to her advantage. I couldn't believe how quickly she turned the tables. One day she's pretending to be the loving wife, and the next she's scheming to steal everything and destroy me in court. I started to see her true colors: bitchy, selfish, ruthless. She's always been good at lying, but now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative woman who'd do anything to get her way, even if it meant destroying her own family. The more I learned, the angrier I got. How could she be so cold? How could she betray me and then turn around and try to take everything from us? I decided I had to fight back, not just for myself but for the kids too. I had to protect what was ours, our home, our future, our family. I started gathering evidence: texts, emails, witness statements from friends who knew about her secret meetings. I also hired a private investigator to find out if she was seeing anyone else besides Jake. But honestly, I didn't need more proof. Her lies, her manipulations, and her betrayal were enough. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to roll over and let her walk all over me. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act, pretending to be the victim, crying on social media about how unfair everything was. She told friends she was the betrayed wife, that I was abusive and unstable, trying to paint herself as the innocent victim. That's when I realized her bitchy, manipulative side was on full display. She'd always been good at spinning stories, but now she was really going for broke. She wanted the estate, the kids, everything. And she was willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate her way there. I felt so betrayed, so angry, but also scared. I knew I had to remain calm, strategic, and focused. I couldn't let her see me fall apart. I had to be the one to protect my kids from her schemes. I started talking to a therapist to help me process everything. Honestly, I was in shock. How could I have loved someone so much and been so blind? How did I not see that she was capable of this level of deception? The pain was overwhelming, but I knew I had to stay strong. For the kids, for myself, for the truth. Every day I woke up with a knot in my stomach, wondering what she was planning next. I stayed vigilant, making sure I documented everything. I didn't trust her anymore. She was a master at lying, and I knew she'd try to manipulate the court, the kids, everyone, into thinking she was the victim. I had to be ready for whatever she threw at me. I told my lawyer I was prepared to fight for full custody, and I was willing to do whatever it took to protect my children from her bitchy, selfish schemes. I knew this was just the beginning, and I'd have to be smarter, tougher, and more determined than ever to keep what's mine. The courtroom battle was like nothing I'd ever imagined. Emily's lawyer was sharp, aggressive, and relentless. She threw everything she could: accusations of instability, claims that I was an unfit father, even trying to paint me as the villain in front of the judge. Emily sat there with her bitchy smirk, pretending to be the victim, acting like I was the one who tore everything apart. But I had my evidence. Texts, emails, witness statements. I even brought in a family friend who saw Emily sneaking out late at night, and my neighbor who overheard her arguing with Jake about their secret meetings. It was exhausting. Every day in court felt like a new attack, a new attempt to undermine me. Emily kept crying, claiming she was the one suffering that. I was trying to ruin her and take the kids away just because I was angry. She played the victim card so well, but I knew better. I knew her bitchy, manipulative side better than anyone. She'd lied to my face for years, and now she was doing the same thing in court. She said I was an unstable mess, that I was abusive, completely untrue. I stayed calm, kept my composure, and let my lawyer do most of the talking. Meanwhile, Emily was busy trying to turn the court against me by claiming I was after her money and that I was unfit to be a father because I was emotionally unstable after discovering her affair. She argued that she deserved the estate, her words. I've sacrificed so much for this family, and I'm entitled to the inheritance. That bitch was trying to steal everything, including the house, the money, and custody of the kids. She's always been good at twisting facts, but I had the evidence, and I made sure the judge saw it. I told my lawyer to push for full custody, and that I was willing to fight her every step of the way. The judge was serious, asking tough questions, but I stayed firm. I explained how Emily's behavior had changed, how she was manipulative and selfish, and how I believed she was trying to use the court to get what she wanted: money, power, and control. I also pointed out her lies and her attempts to turn the kids against me. I told the judge that I loved my children more than anything, and that I was willing to do whatever it took to keep them safe from her bitchy schemes. The day the judge finally made a decision, I felt like I was holding my breath. I knew Emily would be disappointed, but I also knew I'd fought hard and that I had the right on my side. When the ruling came down, it was a huge relief. Full custody of the kids was granted to me. Emily was furious, her bitchy facade cracking just a little, but she kept trying to argue. The judge warned her that her manipulations could backfire, and I think that's when she finally realized she wasn't going to get everything she wanted. In the aftermath, I felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. I'd won custody, but the fight had taken a toll on me. I was drained emotionally and physically, and I knew I'd need to rebuild my life from the ground up. Emily, of course, continued her bitchy tirades, claiming I was the villain trying to turn the kids against her. She even tried to sue me for custody, claiming I was unfit and that she deserved more. It was all part of her game, to manipulate, to lie, to control. But I was done playing her game. I started focusing on the kids, making sure they felt safe and loved. I kept the evidence, stayed vigilant, and prepared for whatever she'd throw at me next. I realized that Emily's bitchy, manipulative nature was who she really was. She'd lie, cheat, and throw tantrums to get her way. I'd learned my lesson the hard way. Trust is fragile and betrayal comes in many forms. I knew I had to be stronger, smarter, and more cautious moving forward. And honestly, I was done being the fool she thought I was. I'd fought for my family, and I'd do everything in my power to protect what's mine. The months after the court decision were a whirlwind, but I felt a sense of victory, at least on the legal front. I had custody, and Emily's attempts to manipulate the situation had failed, at least for now. Still, I knew her bitchy, manipulative nature wouldn't just disappear overnight. She was furious and vindictive, and I could see her plotting her next move. The thing is, I'd learned to read her pretty well by now. She's the kind of woman who doesn't let go of her schemes easily. Her pride was wounded, and she was determined to get back at me, no matter what it took. One night, I got a call from a private investigator I'd hired. Turns out, Emily had been meeting with a lawyer who specialized in family law, someone she was trying to bribe to come up with some crazy claim about how I was abusive or unfit. I didn't need much more proof. I already knew her bitchy, manipulative side too well, but hearing it confirmed just made me angrier. She was trying to dig up dirt, hoping to use it in court or get the kids to turn against me. I realized she was just getting started, and I had to stay one step ahead. Meanwhile, she was still trying. to fight for the estate. She kept insisting she was entitled to her fair share, even though she'd been caught cheating, lying, and scheming. I started thinking about her real motives, her greed, her manipulative nature, her bitchy attitude that she thought she could get away with anything. I decided to dig into the estate's details myself. Turns out, she'd been secretly siphoning money from our joint accounts, trying to hide it from me, planning to claim more than she was entitled to. I was stunned. I had trusted her with everything, money, our future, and she'd been planning to screw me over all along. I sat down with my lawyer again, and we drafted a detailed plan to protect the estate from her schemes. I set up a trust, made sure all accounts were monitored, and took steps to ensure she couldn't drain everything before the court could intervene. I also started consulting a financial advisor to get my money in order, knowing that Emily would do everything she could to take her cut. I couldn't believe I was living through this nightmare. My wife, the woman I loved, was trying to steal from me and destroy what we'd built. It was like a bad movie, but it was real, and I had to be smart and cold if I was going to stop her. But then things got even more complicated. Emily filed a lawsuit, claiming she wanted full custody of the kids, alleging I was an unfit father because I was emotionally unstable after discovering her affair. She was trying to frame me, I knew that. Her bitchy, manipulative attitude was on full display. She was trying to use the courts to punish me, to punish Jake, and to get everything. I couldn't believe the level of her selfishness. She was willing to throw everything away, our family, our future, her integrity, for a shot at more money and control. I started documenting everything, my interactions with the kids, her behavior, her attempts to manipulate the court. I also gathered character references from friends and family who knew me well and could vouch for my stability and love for my children. I knew Emily would try to undermine me with lies, but I was prepared. I hired a new lawyer who specialized in family law and custody battles, someone who understood her bitchy, manipulative tactics and could counter them. Throughout this chaos, I kept asking myself how I'd let things get so bad, how I'd been so blind for so many years. The betrayal cut so deep I wondered if I'd ever recover, but I also realized I had to be strong for my kids, for myself. I couldn't let her manipulate her way into destroying us. I was determined to protect my family, my estate, and my dignity. That bitchy side of Emily, her manipulative, selfish, lying attitude, it was all part of who she was. And I knew now that I had to be smarter, tougher, and more prepared than ever to fight for what's mine. Looking back now, I realize I was living in a kind of fog, believing in the image of a perfect marriage, ignoring all the warning signs that Emily's bitchy, manipulative side had been hiding just beneath the surface. The betrayal was a punch to the gut, but what hurt even more was how I had trusted her for so long. I thought I knew what love was, but it turned out I was just a fool who got played. Still, I don't regret fighting for my kids or standing up for myself. That experience taught me more about human nature and myself than I ever wanted to know. In the end, I managed to keep the estate safe, secure my full custody of the children, and put an end to her schemes, at least for now. She's still angry, still bitchy, and still trying to manipulate everyone around her. But I see her for what she truly is, a selfish, manipulative woman who thought she could walk all over everyone. I learned that trust is fragile and that some people, especially those with a bitchy, scheming attitude, will do anything to get what they want, even if it means tearing their own family apart. I've come to accept that I can't change her, but I can control how I respond. I've started rebuilding my life, focusing on my children and myself. I've learned to be cautious, to read people better, and to never ignore the small signs again. Most importantly, I understand that true strength isn't just about money or possessions. It's about resilience, about standing up when everything seems to be falling apart. If there's one thing I want others to take from this, it's this: don't ignore the red flags. Trust your instincts. And if someone shows their true colors, no matter how charming or bitchy they seem, believe them. Protect yourself and your family. Because in the end, the only person you can truly count on is yourself. And even when betrayal cuts deep, you find a way to heal, to move forward, and to rebuild something stronger than before. That's what I've done. and I'm finally starting to feel like I'm getting my life back.